What's going on, guys? Albie with Albie Fitness Gaming, and you've seen the title of the video. You know why you're here. Green White Hate Bears, and today we're going to be playing against Demir Control. Now, obviously, I did not know this going into the game, and I started the game immediately because this match took 43 minutes, folks. That's a long time. I hate playing against these control decks. One, they're very, very bad matchup for us, and two, they just take so long to kill us. They take so long. There were so many times I wanted to scoop, but I always felt, I know how I am. Inside of my little heart, I always felt like we can come back and win. And that's how these control decks make you feel. They always make you feel like you could come back and win, when in reality you can't. So you end up spending a bunch of time losing. People love playing control decks. You know why they love playing control decks? Because when you're winning, you win for a long period of time, right? It takes you a long time to kill somebody, but you're winning that whole time, so it makes you feel good. That's why they like playing control decks. Anyways, hand was solid. We start off with the Stoneforge Mystic, getting the Batterskull here. We knew we were up against some type of control deck. At this point, I didn't know if I was playing against a Death Shadow deck. But I kind of knew I wasn't playing against the Death Shadow deck because I didn't see any Thoughtseize or Street Wraith immediately. So I figured it was Demir Control for the most part. So we went and got the Batterskull. We got the Batterskull because we knew this game was going to go long. We knew that we cannot just try to bum rush them like we did in some of our previous matches, where we just try to go in as fast as we can and end the game. We knew, hey, we're going to be in this for a long time. So we need to start planning ahead of time and setting us up for the late game. So Nasrat here from our opponent. It's a good card against us. I mean, it's not great, okay? It's not great, but it does get them 2 cards and their deck, because they do have Vendilion Click. And we have Horizon Canopies and Tireless Trackers. It does play good against us. Decent enough. So our opponent, Q Money here, enjoys playing long games of Magic. So this matchup is winnable if we draw, obviously, the right cards, the Collected Companies, the Voice of Resurgence, and they have to be drawn at the right time. Because once they get ahead, like, we can't make a comeback. I mean, we feel like we can, but we really can't. So here instead of going in aggressively with the Knight like we normally would against other matchups like previous videos, we are going, instead of planning for the late game. That's why we went ahead and used the Knight and put down the Batterskull. So right now we have the Batterskull for 4 and we have the Knight for 6. We can play the Ghost Quarter next turn. Ghost Quarter ourselves, bring the Knight up to 8 and deal 12. That's one option. We can also see, depending on what they play, I mean, it's a lot. It depends also what we draw. But right now, even though we have 2 good threats on board, I still was not feeling confident. I just felt like this wasn't enough. I felt we needed some Voice of Resurgence in our hands. We needed some Collected Companies. We needed to continue deploying a lot of threats that were going to gain us some sort of value, because these decks like to 1-for-1 us all day. So here, I'm like, alright, they may have Cryptic, they can tap and bounce, but we can't just be sitting around also, because we haven't drawn anything too good. So we kind of have to start putting some pressure and hope that maybe they don't have anything. I mean, they have 7 cards in hand and 4 mana. They're pretty well set up to win this game from here. Assume if we don't start drawing gas. I mean, we have to draw like Voice of Resurgences into Collected Companies, into Voices, in order to be able to overcome this onslaught of card advantage that they're getting over us right now. So they end up taking 6 here. They bounce our Batter Skull, and they draw a card. So we're back to square one. Now though, now we can kill them on the next crackback. But let's be real. I'm assuming Q Money over here, I'm assuming this is not his first rodeo with this deck. So I'm sure he knows he has this well under control. And we know, I know that too. I feel like, hey, we are, it may look like we're in a decent position, but I know we're not. But it's okay because we're going to continue playing, because that's what hate bears do. We keep playing. We keep fighting. When Demir throws us down, we get up and we keep moving forward. So there it is. Piece of removal. So 6 cards in hand. We already know we're doomed. That's one piece of removal, which means they probably have at least 1 or 2 more, along with some counter spells and probably some Snapcaster Mages. Serum Visions here, smoothing out the next draw or couple of turns. Puts cards at the bottom of their library, which is good news for us. So what we need to draw here, right now actually, is Collected Company. That's what we need right now. So we end up drawing the Stoneforge Mystic, which is not a bad draw. It's kind of like what we want. We want to keep drawing these cards. They're going to get us 2 cards for 1. That's how we're going to get ahead of these guys. So here we're going to go for the Skyclave Sword. We're going to equip it to the Batter Skull, and we're going to get in for 6. I know that this Batter Skull or this Germ token is not long for this world, so we need to try to get as much value as we can off of it. We don't need to path the Gurmar Anger right now. It's not really doing anything, and we're going to be gaining a lot of life from this swing here. So it's not really opposing a big threat right now. The Narset we don't need to get rid of with the Skyclave. Again, that's another card that's not really opposing a big threat. So their permanents right now are not threatening to us. We have a better board state, but we know that with these control decks, it's not about what they have on the board, but what they have in their hands. So they're to 5. We know we're not going to be able to attack with this Germ again. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They got a handful of nothing but great cards. So opponent probably not going to attack. There's no need, like I said earlier, we don't need to get too hasty on the path to exile. The Gurmag Angler is not really opposing a threat to us right now. What we need to focus on right now is continue. We have the swords in, we have the Skyclave Sword and the Batter Skull in play already. So if we can continue to deploy threats and just chip at them, and then eventually be able to just get in one time with the Skyclave Sword, or overwhelm them with just weenies, we could win the game. But I find that unlikely. So Cryptic Command, Snapcaster Mage. What are we going to see here? We're probably going to see a repeat of bounce the Batter Skull or bounce the Germ. He bounces the Germ here, which is the right play. If he would have bounced the Batter Skull, we could have just cheated it back in with the Stoneforge Mystic. But his previous play, he did bounce the Batter Skull, but we didn't have Stoneforge. So good play there by Q Money. So now I think it's time we start deploying some threats. because now things are looking grim. This is when we can start telling the story now where, okay, we're probably going down from here, we're gonna lose. We're playing from behind, and this deck, I mean, it's good at playing from behind. It plays from behind a lot of the times, but like I mentioned in my previous video against Jun, these control style decks are like heavy 1-for-1 discard spells and removal spells are very hard, but they're obviously beatable. The Jun one is, I would say, is easier to beat than the Dimir, and the only reason is because with Jun you don't have to worry about counter spells, right? Like if you draw a Collected Company, you're good to go. With Dimir or decks, control decks that play blue, they have counter. So even if you draw Collected Company, they can play on your turn, which makes it a lot harder. So there goes our bird. Looking at the last hope. They're starting to put the squeeze on us. Now they are on 5. We have some equipment on board. We do have some threats. We have removal. We still have cards in our hand. We're not going to scoop just yet because we're not completely dead yet. Now we're not going to focus on going after any of the planeswalkers here. We need to kill our opponent. That's what we need to do. So we're going to go with the Stoneforge Mystic equipped here because we have a feeling they're going to kill whatever creature is equipped. And we rather them kill the Stoneforge rather than the Skyclave, because the Skyclave will give them a creature. Which we're trying to avoid them having any blockers. So there's the Vendilion Click, which is really good here because they do have the Narset. So they're going to be able to strip a card here, which is taking the Skyclave operation here, the best card in our hand currently, and we're not going to be able to get a card off of that. So, you know, that's what these decks do. They just grind you and pound you down to the ground. But not too much. Not too much. They want to let you feel like you still have a chance so that you continue playing, so they can continue feeling good about themselves as they win a game of Magic that takes them about 6 hours. I guarantee you Q Money is living his best life right now. Alright, so now we're going to play Ghost Quarter ourselves so that we can get a forest here so that we can deploy the Quetzali Pride Mage. So they went after the Skyclave, got the creature, instead took the damage from the Stoneforge. When I saw that, I knew that we were in big trouble, right? Because it's like they pretty much said, hey, nice Stoneforge with an equipment, bud. We don't care. We'll take the damage. That's the way I looked at it. Now we have the Pride Mage. We have the Stoneforge. They have 4 cards in their hand. And 2 Planeswalkers. Yep, and here is when the fun starts. We're at 23, so we have a lot ways to go to be dead. Another Narset here. One of the things about Moto 2 versus paper is that because misclicking is a real thing, and it's happened to me plenty of times, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of you guys, you can still accidentally win a game by your opponent misclicking. Also, you have time, and these control decks, you know, they can run out of time, and you could win that way. I don't like winning that way. It feels kind of cheesy, but it is what it is. That is an option if you're into that. So we didn't go for the Collected Company here because we know they have a mana leak. We saw it off their Narset. And this is pretty much our last chance here. Snapcaster. Eliminate. And there it is. So their one card in hand is Mana Leak. We don't know what the second card is. Now they have Drawn in the Louch, which I know is a removal spell. So now we know they have a removal spell, a Mana Leak, a mystery card, and they have a Liliana of the Hope that's about to... Oh, and a Jace. So there we go. So they have counter magic, they have removal spell, they have Liliana of Hope that's about to ultimate, and they have a Jace the Mind Sculptor, folks. And they're at 2. And we have a Collected Company. Now see, obviously if this was like a Jun-ish type deck without blue, then obviously there wouldn't be a Jace. And we would be okay. You know, we can cast our Collected Company and hope to hit some really good hits, but not when you play against blue. They don't want you to play your fun cards. Alright, so we see the writing on the wall. Sword of Fire and Ice, obviously not going to do anything. I decide, you know what, we're going to scoop the game anyways here. Like, there's no need to continue playing. I mean, we could have continued playing and made them kill us in hopes that Game 2 takes just as long or longer so that we can win on time by them running out of time. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not that type of person. I don't want to win my games that way. So I just said, you know what, let's just go with the company. They're going to Mana Leak it. If they don't, then we have a company. But, you know, they're going to Mana Leak, and then we're going to concede here. No need to really waste everybody's time. Sideboard. Nothing really we could bring in against this matchup because this is just one of those matchups that you just accept. Hey, it's a bad matchup. There's really not much we can do to make it better. Our main deck already has good cards for this matchup with Voice of Resurgence, the greatest of all time, and Collected Company and Stormforged Mystic. So we have good cards against them, if we can cast them. So waiting for our opponent here to sideboard. Now he does take quite a while to sideboard here. So let's just skip some time there. I'm trying to think if I remember what I saw when he sideboarded in. He or she. Q money. How much longer? Okay, here we go. So, mulligan. This hand is decent. And, so the combination of discard spells and counter spells against us, plus removal, is obviously very, very good. But overall, in my opinion, using counter spells and discards in your deck, like, is not really good. I feel like you need to be either or. But, of course, by doing both, there are going to be matches, like ours, where you just have a huge advantage because of it. But overall, man, I don't agree with having counter spells and discards. Like, they seem like you're trying to do the same thing in different ways, and it's too much of the same. But who knows? I'm not a blue mage. I don't really like playing blue. I refuse. I've been traumatized by Legacy, boys. Everybody plays blue, so I had to beat on my own drum, right? Death and Taxes, Maverick, and that's how I've developed my gameplay. All right. So Inquisition, of course, takes out Voice of Resurgence. Interesting is that people always talk bad about Voice of Resurgence, but yet every single time you see people with discard spells take the Voice of Resurgence, they always prioritize killing the voice, and we have already seen people scoop to the voice. You guys think I'm joking when I say that is one of the greatest cards ever printed for green-white. But if you watch the gameplay, it's backing it up, baby. Alright, and here we're starting again. We're starting, folks, with the removal early on. So our hand is not even a 4 out of 10 at best. We do have Gavany, Bird, Skyclave in case they deploy any threat that we can take care of with that. But other than that, man, we don't really have much going on. We don't really have much gas in the tank. And the longer it takes us to get better cards like, I'm going to say it again, Voice of Resurgence and Collected Company in this matchup, the longer it takes us to draw into those, the better it is for them. So there's no reason here, obviously, to cast the Skyclave Apparition. You could argue like, well, you know, it's a 2/2 body and you can start getting in for damage, and no, you can't say that. Like I mentioned earlier, these type of games, like, this is not, you can't race them. You're not gonna race them. It ain't gonna happen. You have to try to basically overcome their onslaught of 1-for-1s and them getting some 2-for-1s here and there, and that's how they're going to get ahead. So we need to keep our Skyclaves in our hand so that we can use them properly on threats and planeswalkers to buy us more time into getting into some of our better cards. So right now, Q Money showing no respect, just Serum Vision, scrying, knows he has this in the bag. But we're going to keep fighting because that's what we do. We fight the good fight, folks. Alright, so now we can start using Gavany Township, which is something. Gavany Township is really good because obviously we have 6 mana dorks that can benefit from that and a Dryad Arbor. But most importantly, against this deck, it allows us to stop casting spells because we know they have counter magic, right? So, and they know that there are spells in our hands that they're going to want to counter. So it's like we're playing this little dance here, right? Where they're going to let us have our Gavany Township, most likely, take a little bit of damage here and there, and not do anything about it until they have to, just because they're going to sit back and say, hey, you go ahead and do that, I'm going to sit back, but I'm not going to allow you to play any big threats for the rest of the game. So Noble Hierarch here, that is good. That's another mana dork. That's pretty good now since we have the Gavany Township. So I have to imagine that they do have some type of removal here, but they're refusing to use it. Excuse me, because they obviously do not see this combination of cards in play right now as a threat. And props to the opponent, Q Money, being really patient with his moves. Because, I mean, the guy has 5 cards in hand. And he's really patient with what he's trying to do. You can tell he's been playing this deck for a while. It's not his first rodeo. So now we have Collected Company. We know they have some type of counter magic, right? They have to. So the plan is, let's just keep using this Gavany Township, boosting our guys. Eventually, they're going to have to do something about it. I'm hoping that when they do something about it, it requires them to use a lot of resources, a lot of mana. So then we can deploy the Collected Company. That's what we're trying to do here. That is why we're not using the Gavany Township right now. If we use the Gavany Township right now, they can then kill our bird, and we're already tapped out. And then they can untap, and then they can wait next turn and then counter our company. This way, it keeps them from killing our bird, allows us to get more damage in, and it keeps our company up. So if they want to take a risk and try to take care of our creatures, then we have a shot at maybe getting this company. So we're going to wait here to the end of turn to use the company. I mean, to use the Gavany Township. Say, getting 1 extra point of damage is not going to, get us there. Or maybe it will. I don't know. Alright, a land here is okay. It's good for the strategy that we're trying to imply here on our opponent. Because now it allows us to just use the Gavany without tapping our creatures. So the birds is getting pretty beefy now. Same strategy here. Not going to use the Gavany Township until the end of their turn, just in case they tap out. I mean, we really want to stick this Collected Company. If we can stick this Collected Company, we're not going to, it doesn't say we're going to win, because obviously Collected Company is a very random card. But assuming we get 2 good hits, we can be back in this game. Alright. Damnation. A nice 2-for-1 there. And now this might be a good time to send out the Collected Company. I mean, there's not going to be a better time. We can't just sit back and let them get ahead. Yep. Mana leak. We could have tapped the Noble with the Damnation, but even with that, we would have only had 2 mana, not 3. So, up to this point, like, the game is pretty even, right? Although they had like a couple times, I think with the Damnation, when they did get like a 2-for-1. It's still 2 cards in hand. And they don't have any permanents in play. So, we're not doing bad. We're still in a winnable situation here. Stoneforge Mystic, not a bad draw. Again, any card that's going to generate 2 cards for 1 is good in these type of matchups. They could have Spell Snare. I don't think the Mirror Control decks play that. I think that's a little too aggressive to play Spell Snare, Mana Leak, Inquisition. It just seems like too much. But there are some savages out there. Opponent really thinking about this Stoneforge. Okay, Stoneforge is in. Grab the batter skull here. We have to continue dropping the greatest hits on them. Snapcaster Mage. What a surprise. I mean, maybe we bring in Fairy Macabre. Maybe. But I don't know. I think the cards in the deck are already the best cards you could be playing against decks like this anyways. Alright, so... Alright, taps out here for a Narset. So... This is going to allow us to deploy the batter skull and have 2 cards in hand after this Narset activation. And they put a Fatal Push in their hand here. So we know, okay, we're going to play this batter skull. We have to play it now because I'd rather have the batter skull in play knowing that the germ is going to get pushed. But at least we'll have the batter skull in play versus it getting mana leaked or something. Alright, Narset activation. They drawn in the lock. That's another removal spell there. Alright, Fatal Push. We knew about that. We know they have a random card. I don't believe we know what one of the cards is, but we do know the other one is a removal spell. Grab the one and only Dried Arbor. We know they have a removal spell, but we need to, like I mentioned earlier and I always mention, we need to keep applying pressure. We need to keep getting those cards out of the hand. We cannot let them load up their hand with removal and counter magic, because then we're just not going to win at all. At least this way we still have a shot. As long as we continue drawing gas. There it is. The game thus far is looking pretty even. Nobody has a real clear advantage. It's up to the top deck wars. Snapcaster getting in for 2. Luckily they haven't windmill slammed a Jace the Mind Sculptor yet, or Liliana of Last Hope. Those are pretty much GG for us. Since we did draw another Skyclave, we're going to go ahead and take out, I believe we take out the Snapcaster here. Yeah. Narset is currently like not doing anything too threatening. This allows us to equip the batter skull and get in for 6 next turn if we're allowed. Looking in their graveyard here, looking at all the removal that they've been using. Doesn't seem like a lot, but sure feels like it. All right, another land here. So if we don't equip here and we attack, chances are they may leave the Skyclave alive anyways, or they may just kill it. I mean, it's not like we can return the Batterskull back to our hands and then deploy it again the same turn. And that's not really a good idea to do anyways, because then we're running the risk of it getting counterspelled. So I think this was the better line, is just to equip it and continue trying to attack them. Another Snapcaster Mage, another removal spell. What a surprise! So, Cryptic Command, bouncing the Batterskull now. So they did us the favor. But pretty much it tells us, say, hey, I dare you. Oh, there it is, Duress. Now they got us in the corner now. They're really laying it in. Stiff. Alright, down to 7. They're slowly now taking control of the game. That's what they do. Akiash here. We're definitely going to be taking care of that with the Skyclave. Tireless Tracker, not a bad draw here. We can play Tireless Tracker and Ghost Quarter ourselves in order to get a clue token. We'll go ahead and grab that clue token. I mean, we're grinding, folks. We're grinding. We're putting up a fight. So you're telling me there's a chance? Nope. No chance. Damnation. So I make a little bit of a misplay here. Maybe a big misplay, actually. Depending, because the way this game is going, it's so close that this was actually a huge misplay. So I cracked the clue on my turn. And they have Narset. And it's funny because I knew that, and like you see here, I go to cast a Knight, and then I'm like, oh wait, why don't I just crack the clue and see what I can get? Maybe I can get a company. And it happens, I get no card, I'm like, hey, what happened? Oh yes, Narset, that's right. Oh boy. So yeah, already, part of my brain was like, don't use the clue token, Narset's in play, cast a Knight, comes the turn, I'm about to cast the Knight, and then like, my lizard brain comes on and says, hey, wait a minute, you can draw a collector company. They don't have any cards. Cracked it, paid for it. And, possibly, maybe that cost us this game. I don't know. I don't want to say that it did, but it's a possibility that misplay could have cost us the game, because this is a close game. Because right now we would have had an extra card. We would have had whatever card we're going to draw here, which is a Horizon Canopy. Horizon Canopy, we're not going to crack it here because we know we cannot. So we'll crack it on their upkeep because we're hoping to get a collected company here that we can cast. And no, it's a Ramanap Excavator, which is not a bad draw because now we can continue using our Horizon Canopies on their upkeep, of course. But now they have a card in hand. So now drawing company doesn't look that good. So we draw the Skyclave Sword. And this is good for us. This is good because if they don't have anything good in their hand, we could ride this to victory. But what am I saying? Of course they got something good, right? Why wouldn't they? Alright, so there's Maul Skyclaves. This sword has been so good. So we'll go ahead. I was thinking about getting the Horizon Canopy, but I decided, you know what, let's go with the Dried Arbor. We need another threat just in case they have a removal spell. Now we have another threat that we can put the sword on. Especially since getting the Canopy right now, it's not going to do anything. So Cryptic Command taps the team. Lights out, folks. Lights out. And there it is. So it didn't even matter. Alright, well there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. If you saw any misplays that I didn't mention, please comment at the bottom. Let me know. Again, Dimir control, very tough matchup as you can see there, but we were playing to our outs. We did our best and we got decimated. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share. It helps out a lot. And again, thank you and peace out.